My name is Caleb Donovan. For 3 years, my relationship with my fiancée was calm, stable, and full of trust. We were planning our wedding, and everything seemed perfect. Then one day, she told me she wanted to visit her parents by bus because she missed the simple feeling from her school days. I didn't suspect anything and agreed. 2 days later, her mother called me asking how we were doing. I was confused and told her that my fiancé had already been there for 2 days. Her mother replied that she had never arrived. That single phone call changed everything. Using the iCloud link to her phone, I discovered where she really was and who she was with. The person she was secretly seeing was the last person I could have ever imagined. The betrayal hit me harder than anything I had experienced before. The woman I was about to marry had been lying to me, and the evidence I found was undeniable. I gathered everything quietly, messages, locations, photos, without saying a word to anyone. The night I decided to confront the truth was at a family dinner at her parents' house. What should have been a normal evening turned into the moment I ended everything. The pain of that discovery still burns, but so does the resolve I felt that night. This is the story of how one unexpected betrayal forced me to see the truth and walk away for good. If you've ever been betrayed by the person you trusted the most, or discovered something that shattered your entire future, then you need to hear what happened next. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the full story. The weeks before that phone call felt completely ordinary in our quiet life in Missoula. I spent most days at the small office downtown where my company handled software solutions for local businesses. I kept the operation modest on purpose, dressing in jeans and simple shirts like everyone else in town. Madison worked as a marketing coordinator at a nearby firm and often came home with stories about her projects. We had fallen into a comfortable routine over 3 years together. Evenings were spent cooking together, watching shows, or taking walks along the river path near our apartment. She talked frequently about our upcoming wedding and how excited she was to start the next chapter. I felt the same. Everything seemed steady and right. One Friday evening, while we were cleaning up after dinner, Madison mentioned that she wanted to visit her parents the following weekend. She said she missed the simple feeling of riding the bus like she did back in her school days. She wanted to take the long route through the mountains instead of letting me drive her. I found the request a bit unusual, but didn't think much of it. I told her it was fine if that made her happy. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and said she would leave early Saturday morning. I helped her pack a small bag the night before and reminded her to text me when she arrived. She promised she would and gave me a long hug before we went to bed. Saturday morning arrived clear and cool. I woke up to the sound of her moving around the apartment. She left a note on the kitchen counter saying she loved me and would call when she got there. I made coffee and went about my usual weekend tasks, checking emails and reviewing some project updates. By late afternoon, I still hadn't heard from her. I sent a quick text asking if she had arrived safely. No reply came. I assumed the bus ride was taking longer than expected or that she was busy catching up with her family. I didn't worry yet. Sunday passed the same way, no call, no text. I tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. That was when the first small knot of unease formed in my stomach. I told myself she might have forgotten to charge her phone or was simply enjoying time with her parents. Still, something felt off. Monday morning, I went to the office as usual, but my mind kept drifting back to her silence. Around 11 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Madison's mother, Margaret. Her voice sounded concerned as she asked how we were doing and whether Madison had been feeling okay lately. I paused, confused, and told her that Madison had left for their house 2 days earlier by bus. Margaret was quiet for a moment before replying that she had not seen or heard from her daughter at all. That single sentence hit me like cold water. I asked Margaret to repeat herself. She confirmed Madison had never arrived. I told her I would handle it and ended the call. My hands were shaking as I sat down at my desk. I remembered that Madison had given me access to her iCloud account months earlier so we could share photos and locations for safety. I opened the app on my laptop and entered her login. The map loaded slowly. A small blue dot appeared on the screen showing her current location. It was not at her parents' house in the next town over. It was at a motel on the outskirts of Missoula, only 20 minutes from our apartment. I zoomed in. The location was familiar. I had driven past that motel many times. I checked the history of locations over the past few days. The dot had been there since Saturday morning. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through the shared photos and messages synced to the account. There were pictures I had never seen before. Selfies of Madison smiling next to my older brother Connor. Intimate shots taken inside the motel room. timestamped messages between them that left no room for doubt. They had been seeing each other behind my back for months. Connor, the brother I had helped financially for years because he never held a steady job, was the person she had chosen to betray me with. I sat there staring at the screen for what felt like hours. The betrayal was so complete and so close to home that it left me numb. I didn't cry or shout. I simply closed the laptop, took a deep breath, and began methodically saving every piece of evidence I could find. Screenshots, location logs, deleted messages that had synced anyway. I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I would not confront her in private. I would wait for the family dinner she had already planned at her parents' house later that week. That was where the truth would come out in front of everyone who needed to hear it. The days until that dinner passed in a strange calm. I continued working, answering calls, and behaving as if nothing had changed. Madison finally texted me late Tuesday night saying she had arrived safely and was enjoying time with her family. I replied with a simple, "Glad you're there," and left it at that. Inside, I was already preparing for the moment I would end everything we had built together. The days after discovering the truth passed in a strange, heavy silence. I continued going to the office each morning, answering emails and attending meetings as if nothing had changed. Inside, however, my mind kept replaying the photos and messages I had found. The betrayal felt even more painful because it involved my own brother, Connor. He was the one I had supported financially for years, helping him with rent car payments and living expenses because he could never keep a steady job. Now he had taken the one person I trusted most. The anger was quiet but constant. I didn't confront Madison immediately. I needed time to organize everything I had collected. Screenshots, location history, deleted messages that had synced to the cloud. I saved copies of every piece of evidence in multiple places. Tyler stopped by the office one afternoon after I told him something serious had happened. He listened without interrupting as I explained what I had found. He offered to help in any way I needed and reminded me that I didn't have to face this alone. Olivia also reached out that evening, sensing something was wrong from my short replies. I told her the basics, and she offered to come over whenever I was ready to talk. By Wednesday, Madison sent me a casual text saying she was having a good time with her family and would be back by the weekend. She even added a heart emoji at the end. I stared at the message for a long time before replying with a simple, "Okay." The contrast between her casual tone and what I now knew made my stomach turn. I spent that night reviewing the evidence again, making sure nothing could be disputed. The next morning, I received a call from Margaret Madison's mother. She sounded worried and asked if everything was all right between us. I told her I would explain everything in person at the family dinner we had already planned for Friday night. She seemed surprised by my tone but didn't press further. Thursday dragged on. I barely slept. The weight of what I was about to do sat heavily on my chest. Tyler came over after work and helped me organize my thoughts. He suggested I stay calm and stick to the facts when the moment came. Olivia sent a message saying she would be available all weekend if I needed support afterward. Their presence helped steady me when the anger and sadness threatened to overwhelm everything. Friday evening arrived. I drove to the Thompson family home on the edge of Missoula. The house looked the same as always. Warm lights in the windows, the smell of home-cooked food drifting from the kitchen. Margaret greeted me at the door with a smile and a hug. Richard was in the living room setting the table. Madison came downstairs wearing the dress I had bought her for her birthday. She kissed me on the cheek and acted as if nothing was wrong. I returned the gesture without smiling. We sat down to dinner with the whole family, Margaret, Richard, and Madison's younger sister who had come home for the weekend. The conversation started light. Margaret asked about my work and the wedding plans. Madison talked excitedly about colors for the invitations. I listened quietly, waiting for the right moment. When there was a natural pause in the conversation, I placed my phone on the table and turned the screen toward them. I played the first video security footage from the motel showing Madison and Connor entering the room together. Then I showed the messages, the photos, and the location history. The room went completely silent. Margaret's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. Richard stared at the screen in disbelief. Madison's face turned pale. She tried to speak, but no words came out at first. I spoke calmly but firmly, telling them that the wedding was off. I explained that I had discovered Madison had been seeing my brother Connor for months. I laid out the evidence, clearly showing how she had lied about visiting her parents and where she had actually been. Margaret looked at her daughter with disappointment and asked if it was true. Madison started crying and saying it was a mistake that she never meant for it to happen. Richard remained quiet, his expression a mix of shock and sadness. The atmosphere in the room became heavy. Margaret expressed that she was deeply sorry for what her daughter had done and that she understood how much pain this must have caused me. She said she was disappointed in Madison's choices, but also noted that as her parents, they had to support their daughter even when she made serious mistakes. Richard nodded slowly and said he was shocked by the betrayal, but believed families should try to work through difficult situations. They both showed clear sympathy toward me and criticized Madison's actions, yet they stopped short of taking strong action against her, saying it was ultimately her life and her decisions. Madison begged me to forgive her, saying she had made a terrible error and that she still loved me. She tried to reach for my hand across the table, but I pulled away. I told her the relationship was over and that I would not be marrying her. The dinner that was supposed to be about wedding plans had become the moment everything ended. I stood up, thanked Margaret and Richard for the meal, and walked out of the house without looking back. The cool night air of Missoula hit my face as I got into my car. For the first time since discovering the truth, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The chapter with Madison was finished. What came next would be my decision alone. The drive home from the Thompson house that night felt longer than usual. I kept both hands on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. The images from the evidence I had shown them kept flashing through my mind. Madison's face when the video played, Margaret's look of disappointment, Richard's stunned silence. It all replayed in slow motion. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt exhausted, as if the weight I had been carrying for days had finally been set down but left a deep emptiness behind. When I walked into my apartment, the silence was immediate. No Madison waiting with a smile, no half-finished wedding planning notes on the table. I sat on the couch and stared at the wall for a long time. Tyler called around 10 o'clock. I told him what had happened at the dinner. He listened quietly and then said he would come over if I needed company. I told him I was okay for now, but appreciated the offer. Olivia texted shortly after asking how I was holding up. I replied that the confrontation was done and that I had ended the engagement. Both of them offered to be there the next day, and I accepted. The following morning, Margaret called me. Her voice was tired but sincere. She said she was deeply sorry for what her daughter had done and that she understood how painful the betrayal must be. She admitted that Madison's actions were wrong and that she had spoken to her daughter sternly about the damage caused. However, she also gently reminded me that, as parents, they had to support their child even when she made serious mistakes. She didn't ask me to forgive Madison or reconsider the wedding. She simply expressed regret and said she hoped I would find peace. Richard sent a short text later that day saying he was shocked by everything and that he was sorry for the pain their family had caused me. He added that they would not interfere in Madison's personal decisions, but wanted me to know they did not condone what she had done. Madison tried calling me multiple times that weekend. I let the calls go to voicemail. In her messages, she cried, apologized repeatedly, and said she had made a terrible mistake. She claimed the relationship with Connor had been a moment of weakness and that she still loved me. I listened to one of the voicemails once and then deleted the rest without replying. There was nothing left to say. Connor also reached out. His message was short and defensive. He said he never meant for things to go this far and that he hoped we could talk like brothers. I didn't respond. The brother I had helped financially for years, paying his rent, covering his bills when he couldn't find steady work, had chosen to betray me in the worst possible way. The trust I once had for him was gone completely. Tyler came over on Saturday afternoon. We sat on the back porch overlooking the mountains and talked for hours. He helped me see that ending the relationship was the right decision, even though it hurt. Olivia joined us in the evening, bringing food and quiet company. Having them there made the immediate aftermath more bearable. They didn't offer empty platitudes. They simply listened and reminded me that I still had people who genuinely cared about me. By Monday, the news had started to spread within our small social circle in Missoula. A few mutual friends reached out, some expressing shock, others offering support. I kept my responses brief. I had no interest in rehashing the details or seeking sympathy. My focus shifted to practical matters. I canceled all the wedding vendors, handled the paperwork for the broken engagement, and began separating our shared finances. The process was painful but necessary. Madison's parents maintained their position in the following weeks. Margaret called once more to check on me and reiterated that she was disappointed in her daughter's choices. She said they had grounded Madison in their own way by making it clear how much damage had been done, but they would not force her to end contact with Connor or take stronger action. They believed it was ultimately Madison's life and her consequences to face. Their stance was one of sympathy toward me, combined with reluctant parental protection of their daughter. I appreciated their honesty, even if it didn't change my decision. The betrayal had been too deep, and the involvement of my own brother made forgiveness impossible. I blocked Madison's number and asked Tyler to help me remove any remaining traces of her from my daily life. The weeks that followed the dinner brought a strange kind of clarity. The pain was still there, but it no longer consumed me entirely. I threw myself into work, spending longer hours at the office and focusing on new projects. Tyler and Olivia continued to check in regularly, their steady friendship becoming an important anchor during the transition. The chapter with Madison had ended abruptly at that family dinner. What remained now was the decision to move forward without looking back. The days after the family dinner settled into a new kind of quiet. I returned to my normal routine in Missoula, waking up early, going to the office, and handling the steady flow of work for my company. The apartment felt different now, emptier, but also lighter. I had started boxing up Madison's remaining things and setting them aside for her to collect. There were no dramatic scenes or shouting matches. I simply wanted the physical reminders gone so I could move forward. Connor tried reaching out several times, first through text, then with a voicemail that sounded defensive and apologetic at the same time. He claimed the situation with Madison had been a mistake and that he never intended to hurt me. He even suggested we could sit down and talk like brothers. I listened to the message once and then deleted it. The brother I had supported financially for years, covering rent bills and living expenses because he couldn't hold down a steady job, had crossed a line that could not be undone. I blocked his number and made the decision final. There would be no more financial support, no more conversations, and no more relationship. Tyler came by the office midweek to check on me. We grabbed coffee and walked along the river path during lunch. He didn't offer empty comfort. He simply listened as I described how surreal it felt to have both my fiancée and my own brother betray me at the same time. He reminded me that I had built a successful business through my own effort and that I still had people who genuinely respected me. His steady presence helped ground me when the anger threatened to take over. Olivia stopped by my apartment one evening with takeout. We ate on the balcony overlooking the mountains and talked about everything except the betrayal. She had been a quiet but consistent support throughout the entire ordeal. Her calm nature and honest advice helped me see that ending the engagement was not a failure, it was self-respect. As the weeks passed, our friendship began to shift naturally into something deeper, though neither of us rushed to define it. My parents, Paul and Cynthia, drove down from their home outside Missoula to spend a weekend with me. They listened to the full story without judgment. My mother expressed disappointment in Madison's choices and in Connor's actions, but she also reminded me that I had the strength to rebuild. My father was quieter, simply saying that real family doesn't stab you in the back and then expect forgiveness. Their support was steady and unconditional, the kind I had not received from the Thompson family. Madison's parents, Margaret and Thomas, maintained their earlier position. Margaret called once more to express sympathy for what I had gone through. She said she had spoken firmly with her daughter and was disappointed in her behavior, but as parents, they felt they could not completely cut ties or force Madison to face harsher consequences. Thomas sent a short message saying he understood my decision to walk away and wished me well. They showed clear compassion toward me, but stopped short of taking stronger action against their daughter, respecting her autonomy even while acknowledging the pain she had caused. The financial separation was straightforward but painful. I canceled joint accounts, removed Madison's name from any shared documents, and stopped all automatic transfers. The wedding deposits that had already been paid were lost, but I considered it the price of clarity. I focused on the company, pouring my energy into new projects and team expansion. The work became both a distraction and a source of pride. 6 months after the dinner, Connor's situation began to deteriorate. Without the regular financial support I had provided for years, he struggled to pay rent and basic bills. He reached out again this time, asking for help in a more desperate tone. I replied with a single message telling him it was time for him to stand on his own feet and find stable work. I wished him well, but made it clear there would be no more assistance. That chapter was closed. Madison's attempts to contact me had also slowed. She sent a few longer messages apologizing and saying she regretted everything. She claimed the relationship with Connor had been a mistake driven by confusion and that she still loved me. I read the messages once and then deleted them without replying. There was nothing left to salvage. As the months passed, I began spending more time with Olivia. Our connection had grown naturally through the support she and Tyler had given me during the hardest period. She never pushed, never asked for more than friendship until the timing felt right. One quiet evening by the river, we talked openly about how our feelings had changed. From that point forward, our relationship developed with honesty and care. The pain of the betrayal didn't disappear overnight, but it no longer defined me. I had faced the truth at that family dinner, made the difficult decisions afterward, and chosen to protect my peace by walking away completely. The road ahead felt clearer than it had in a long time. The silence after I cut off all contact with both Madison and Connor felt surprisingly peaceful. I continued focusing on the company in Missoula. The business kept growing steadily, and I spent most of my time reviewing new client projects and improving our software platform. Tyler managed the day-to-day operations with his usual reliability, while Olivia handled client communications and branding. Their presence made the transition smoother than I had expected. We worked well together, and the friendship we had built during my hardest period remained strong. Connor's situation worsened over the following months. Without the regular financial support I had provided for years, he quickly fell behind on rent and basic bills. He reached out one last time through a mutual acquaintance asking for help in a desperate tone. I sent a short final reply telling him that the support was over and that it was time for him to find stable work and take responsibility for his own life. He responded with anger, accusing me of abandoning family. I didn't reply. The brother I had helped for so long had made his choice, and I had made mine. Madison's life also changed dramatically. After Connor could no longer afford the lifestyle she had become accustomed to, their relationship ended quickly. She tried contacting me several more times, sending longer messages apologizing and saying she regretted everything. She claimed the affair had been a mistake and that she still loved me. I read the messages once and then blocked her number. There was nothing left to salvage. My parents, Paul and Cynthia, continued to be a steady source of support. They never pressured me to forgive anyone. Instead, they focused on the present, inviting me for weekend meals and reminding me that I still had a family that stood by me unconditionally. Their quiet strength helped me move forward without carrying unnecessary guilt. One evening, Olivia and I sat on the balcony of my apartment overlooking the mountains. We talked openly about how our feelings had grown over the past year. What began as friendship and support during my lowest time had slowly developed into something deeper and more meaningful. We decided to take the next step together carefully and honestly. From that point on, our relationship felt natural and right. The company continued to expand. We moved into a larger office space downtown and hired additional staff. The work gave me purpose and direction. Success no longer felt fragile. It felt like the natural result of consistent effort and the right people standing beside me. 6 months after the family dinner, I received one final message from Margaret Madison's mother. She wrote that she was truly sorry for what her daughter had done and that she understood why I had chosen to walk away completely. She said the family had tried to talk to Madison about her choices, but as parents, they could only offer guidance, not force her decisions. She wished me well and hoped I would find happiness. I read the message once and then deleted it without replying. I appreciated her honesty, but it didn't change my decision. The bridge had been burned. Madison eventually moved to a smaller place on the other side of town. According to what I heard through distant mutual friends, she struggled after the breakup with Connor and the loss of the lifestyle she had expected. She tried reaching out to me one last time through a mutual acquaintance, but I made it clear there would be no further contact. Connor's financial troubles deepened. Without my support, he faced eviction and had to move in with friends temporarily. He stopped trying to contact me directly. The last I heard, he was working odd jobs and trying to figure out how to support himself. The consequences of his choices had become real. As the year progressed, I began to feel a genuine sense of peace. The pain of the betrayal had not disappeared completely, but it no longer controlled my days. I had faced the truth at that family dinner, made the difficult decisions afterward, and chosen to protect my peace by walking away completely from both Madison and Connor. Tyler remained my closest friend and business partner. Olivia and I grew closer every day, building a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. My parents continued to be a steady foundation. The people who had stood by me during the darkest period were still there, and that meant more than anything. The road ahead felt clearer and lighter than it had in a long time. I had learned that some betrayals are too deep to forgive and that protecting your future sometimes means letting go of the past completely. Time passed quietly in Missoula after I made my final decision. The company continued to grow steadily. We expanded the team, moved into a larger office downtown, and signed new contracts with businesses across Montana. I kept my personal life simple: jeans and hoodies to work early morning runs along the river trail and quiet evenings at home. Success no longer felt like something I had to prove to anyone. It simply became part of my daily reality. Connor's life changed dramatically once the financial support ended. Without the regular money I had given him for years, he struggled to pay rent and basic expenses. He tried reaching out one last time through a mutual friend asking for help. I sent a short, clear reply telling him it was time to stand on his own and find stable work. He never contacted me again. The last I heard, he was working odd jobs and moving between temporary places. The consequences of his choices had become very real. Madison also faced the fallout from her decisions. After Connor could no longer afford the lifestyle she had grown used to, their relationship ended quickly. She tried contacting me a few more times, sending messages, apologizing, and asking if there was any chance to talk. I read them once and then blocked her number permanently. There was nothing left to say. The trust had been broken too deeply. My parents, Paul and Cynthia, remained a steady and quiet support. They never pushed me to forgive anyone. They simply continued inviting me for weekend meals and reminding me that I still had a family that stood by me without conditions. Their presence was a reminder that real family does not betray you when you need them most. Tyler stayed as my closest friend and business partner. His steady leadership helped the company grow without unnecessary drama. Olivia and I grew closer every day. What started as friendship during my hardest time had slowly developed into a deep, honest relationship based on trust and mutual respect. We took our time, never rushing, allowing the connection to feel natural. One peaceful evening by the river in Missoula, I asked Olivia to marry me. She said yes with tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the long journey we had shared. The wedding was small and intimate, attended only by close family and trusted friends. My parents walked with me, their pride evident. Tyler stood as my best man. There were no grand gestures, just genuine happiness surrounded by the people who had truly stood by me. Marriage to Olivia brought a kind of peace I had not known before. We built a simple, comfortable life together in a quiet neighborhood not far from my parents. Weekends were spent hiking along the mountain trails, hosting small gatherings, or simply enjoying each other's company. The contrast with my previous relationship was clear. This time there was trust, respect, and no hidden betrayals. The company continued to thrive. We reached new milestones and began exploring opportunities beyond Montana. Success felt stable and earned. I no longer wondered what might have happened if I had stayed in the old relationship. I knew I had made the right choice by walking away completely. Looking back at everything that began with that phone call from Margaret, one truth stood out clearly. When the people closest to you choose to betray your trust, especially in such a personal way, holding on only causes more pain. Real family is not defined by blood alone. It is defined by those who stand with you when everything falls apart and celebrate your growth without expecting anything in return. I learned that protecting your peace sometimes means cutting ties completely. Forgiveness is not always required, especially when the apology comes only after you have succeeded. Some betrayals run too deep to repair, and forcing reconciliation only invites more damage. Today I wake up grateful for the life I have built with Olivia, supported by my parents and Tyler. The betrayal that once shattered me became the catalyst that forced me to rebuild stronger with the right people by my side. Some chapters do not end with forgiveness or second chances. They end with quiet acceptance and the decision to move forward. And sometimes walking away completely is the healthiest and strongest choice you can make. This is my story from being betrayed by the two people I trusted most to finding real happiness and peace with those who never wavered. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, remember this: you are not obligated to keep toxic people in your life just because they share your blood or your history. Your peace, your healing, and your future are worth protecting.